Hello, welcome back to the Saba show. First it was months, then it was weeks, and now it's days. The AFL season is officially upon us, and it is only a few days out. I don't know when this video is coming out, but today I present to you the first week of predictions for the AFL season, round one. Share your thoughts in the comments, start a discussion. I will be responding to whatever you have to say. Like the video if you do enjoy, and subscribe to the show. This will be a regular thing on a weekly basis, so do hope you enjoy. First things first, we kick things off with the opening game of the season, and it is starting at a very unusual Wednesday night time slot. It is the D's and the Dogs, the grand final rematch. This is why it is much anticipated. Two teams that did lose their last preseason fixture. Carlton were the team that trumped the D's, and the Dogs fell short against the Brisbane Lions. Now, there are a few things to point out. The D's were missing a number of players. Their backline was pretty much, all reserves players, or vast majority, in that game against the Blues. Stephen May is yet to come back. Christian Salem is yet to come back. Petty and Rivers are going to be out still. But this team is very strong, and that's why it was a pretty big surprise to see Carlton absolutely demolish them in the first half. The Bulldogs, on the other hand, they had a bit of an injury scare with Alex Keith, but apart from that, they were all good to go. Josh Dunkley seems to be like he is returning to 2020 form. Obviously, they probably don't want to get too caught up in that storyline of, losing the grand final last season. I think they are going to come out very strong, but I think the D's, they showed their authority last season. They absolutely flogged the Bulldogs and basically showed how much of a class above they were in comparison to, those other three teams in the top four. So I think the D's are going to be too strong here. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think they're going to have a very big crowd because it's obviously a Wednesday night, not very family friendly. But I think it's going to live up to the occasion. So D's for the win. Next up, we have the Carlton Footy Club taking on Richmond Thursday night. This is the traditional matchup you usually get, opening game of the season. The Blues beat the D's, as we just mentioned, very recently, and the Tigers beat a Hawthorn side that obviously has a long way to go. But the Tigers, now, I don't really know what the gauge is for them. Obviously, basically took a year off. Had a lot of their players out. They are still getting a few players back into full fitness. I think Jack Graham is touch and go. Dylan Grimes had a bit of a finger problem, but he probably will be all right. He's rushing his way back. And then Kane Lambert is out as well. For the Blues, if there's going to be one game that they're going to win to start off the season, it's probably going to be this one. I think this is the best shot we've had in years to win a game of footy. Obviously, last season, Adam Sard and Zach Williams, it took them a long time to find their feet, even if they did, let's be honest. But hopefully Adam Chera and George Hewitt don't repeat the trend and start off extremely slow. I think if the practice match was anything to go off, it's that they are two very good footballers that will fit the style of footy that we're playing. I think we're going to win this game. And I don't think it's going to be convincing. Usually there's times where we rock up for 3 quarters and then end up losing by 4 goals, like we do every year. And that's, not discrediting Richmond. I think Richmond are going to be a very good football side this year. I think a lot of teams are, basically throwing them under the rug and thinking they're going to be a bottom 8 side. I do not think that. I think they will be top 6. But I think we're going to come out of the blocks strong. And for the first time in what seems like forever, we're going to pick up win number 1 in the first game of the season. Got St Kilda Collingwood, and this one better live up to the hype because the Kanye West concert was not allowed to be had at Marvel Stadium because this game took precedence. The Saints, they beat the Bombers the other week at the expense of some injuries to Hunter Clark and Jack Billings. Their ruck situation is confusing as hell because Paddy Ryder, I don't know where he sits. Max King should be poised for a great year. I think, that's going to be a ripper matchup on Darcy Moore. The Pies are also regaining some players. Obviously, Pat Lipinski picked up a little bit of a knock, but he should be right to go as well. They lost convincingly to GWS, so basically indicating how far off the pace they are, but I think Nick Dacos could could be a very, very good addition for the Pies in that midfield, but I think he's going to be, starting in that back line and then, moving into the midfield, sort of like Dyson Heppel when he was a rookie. But I think the Saints are going to be too strong. I mean, they beat a pretty full-strength Essendon outfit last week. Obviously slowed down at the back end of the match, but, that's natural. Fatigue usually sets in, especially when you're not at full match fitness. But I think, the Pies aren't... Yeah, they're a fair way off it. I think the Saints, even though they performed against some very good teams and then faltered against some mediocre ones last season, I think they're going to do business in the first game of the season. Another clash that I think will attract a few people is Geelong taking on the Essendon Bombers. Two sides which I cannot get a gauge on. I think a lot of people are anticipating Geelong to go down the ladder, Essendon to possibly go up. Look, I think Essendon are going to win this game. Geelong did lose to Gold Coast. Mind you, they had a lot of their players out. But we did get to see some good signs from young players. I think Cooper Stevens is going to be a guy to watch. The Bombers did lose Harry Jones. So that really, causes a few problems in terms of their key forward stocks. Obviously, with Hurley out, Hooker retired. Peter Wright probably the only go-to there. Jake Stringer, I don't know what his injury status is for round one because he was obviously out. But the Bombers have a very good midfield now. Jai Caldwell is going to be in the mix as well. It's just a matter of where the hell you put all these players. Dylan Shield didn't even play last week as well. They did lose to the Saints. But look, I think I back the Bombers to win this one. I think Geelong, as I said, I think a lot of people are expecting them to go down the ladder, I think. And I don't think they're going to be ready for an Essendon challenge. So I think Essendon are going to win by a few more goals than people expect. I'm going to say about a 4-goal margin. We have the Sydney Derby at ANZ, or as it is now called, ACCOR Stadium. I've got no idea. But Stephen Coniglio's back for the Giants. He's been pretty good in the preseason games. Obviously, Toby Green is out for some time. And the guys that were poised to replace him have gone down with injuries. So look, the Giants obviously performed very well in adversity last season, picked up some big wins on the road. I think Toby Green was playing in those games. I'm not too sure. Don't cite me on it. The Swans, though, I mean, they picked up a win against North Melbourne in preseason. I think that was expected. Lance Franklin is very close to kicking 1,000 goals. You won't be seeing too many more in our lifetime kick 1,000 goals. Obviously, Tom Papley, I think he's out for a bit of time. I could just be completely 100% off the mark there. But Paddy McCartan apparently is, he's cemented his role in the back line, or is making a case for that spot. Look, I think the Swans are just going to be too strong here. GWS did pick up a pretty handy 41-point win over the Pies in the preseason fixture, but yeah, I think that Toby Green loss is absolutely huge. I mean, we saw his impact in this fixture in the elimination final last year. Obviously, they're going to be missing out on that, and I think the Swans are just going to be too good. They did come out of the blocks last season against Brisbane at the Gabba, which really shocked a lot of people, so I think they will replicate the feat and pick up the points here. We were talking about Brisbane just a moment ago. They are taking on the Power at night at the Gabba, and I think Brisbane, they're a very formidable side at home. And I can just bank on them picking up the points in this fixture against the Power. The Power, look, they're young guys. I think, Rosie, it was Butters last year emerging, and I think it could be Rosie this year going into the midfield. They picked up a win against their arch nemesis in the Adelaide Crows. But look, the Power are missing Dixon. I mean, how much of a role he would have played in a game like this it's a question mark, but in the past he hasn't performed too well against a lot of good opposition. And the Lions, they're absolutely basking in depth. Midfield depth, a player goes out, they bring another one in. I think Noah Answorth is a player to watch for Brisbane. He has been touted as a big improver for the Lions. You've got some other players, including Harry Sharp, I think, is another player that Brisbane are rating pretty highly, and they've got some rookies coming through the ranks. Kadeem Coleman went out, but they've got like 3 other players waiting in line. So I think that speaks volumes as to how deep this Brisbane side is, and it's very similar to the Bulldogs situation in the fact that the Bulldogs played about 40 of their 46 players last season, which is absolutely mental to me. And they made the grand final. So I think the Lions have a very similarly built list, and I think they're just going to do the damage that they usually do at home against the Power. So I'm predicting a pretty convincing win for the Lions at home. Sunday afternoon clash between the Hawks and North. I mean, these are two sides that we know are going to be down the bottom of the ladder, but you know, that means we're going to be seeing a lot of time being invested in the youth. And Josh Ward was exceptional against the Tigers in the preseason game. Mind you, that was without Mitchell and Jaeger O'Meara, but I think Josh Ward will probably fit onto a wing very nicely. I think he's one of those guys that has a lot of, you know, he's got no problems with work rate. He's very similar to Sam Walsh, sort of in that mold. On the other side, you've got North Melbourne. You know, they've got Jason Horne-Francis at their disposal. I think he will kick a couple of goals on debut. They did lose to North or to Sydney last week. But Horne-Francis, I mean, I saw a bit of the game and I saw that Horne-Francis goal off a step in the wet, and that was pretty clinical. So I'm actually going to predict a North Melbourne win. I think Hawthorn have got a lot of nice young players. I would not be surprised if Hawthorn win this, but I think as a little bit of an outlier pick, I'm going to tip North. I mean, they've got a pretty decent midfield. Obviously, they were exposed to a lot of game time last season, but that also allowed them to flourish. Simpkin, Davies Uniacke, Taron Thomas. You know, you've got Savlaki up forward as well. No stress, and Ben Mackay is pretty strong down back. That's forgetting Cunnington's out of the side, and then you've also got the ruck discussion. You know, North do not know who they're picking between Goldstein, Coleman Jones, and Sherry or Cherry, whatever you want to say, how to pronounce it, I don't know. And then Hawthorn, Max Lynch, and Ned Reeves are the two going head-to-head in that department. So that's another good or very interesting dynamic we got going there, where the teams go for two rucks. I think North will obviously do that. But yeah, I think North Melbourne are actually going to surprise a few. The 4-10 clash is between the Crows and the Dockers. The Dockers have started pretty well. Mind you, they've only played West Coast. But this is a team that has been well hyped up in the off-season. A lot of people are tipping them to make the jump. Nat Fyfe is, you know, recovering from those shoulder problems, but he should be right to go. Jordan Clark and Will Brodie obviously are two new recruits for Fremantle that could have big impacts. Will Brodie looked very good on the weekend in limited action. And then you've also got someone like Hayden Young and Heath Chapman. They're very good rebounding halfbacks. Hayden Young more, I guess, the kicking type, and then Heath Chapman, you know, will do a lot of meters gained without kicking the footy. He'll do a lot of dashing off halfback. I think that's really exciting for Fremantle supporters. It really is the question mark whether those key forwards can be consistent in Matt Taberner and Rory Lobb. Rory Lobb picked up the knock, so I think he's right to go. For the Crows, Josh Rashali looked very, very nice. He's probably been close to their best player. They did, unfortunately, see Rory Laird pick up a 4 to 6 week hand injury, so he's a big loss because he was obviously one of the emerging mids of the comp, you know, quite far into his AFL career last season, but obviously that allows for players like Schoenberg, who has been tipped as a big improver this season, as well as Matt Crouch, who is returning after a very long absence. So look, I'm going to back Freo to win this away from home. Adelaide Oval can get a bit fiery, a bit volatile at times, especially if, you know, you're the travelling side, but I think Fremantle will live up to the hype here. They've got a lot of players back. I mean, how long will this non-injury crisis last for before, you know, they start picking up the injuries? I think that's a question mark. But I think Fremantle just have too much strength, especially if you look at both teams on paper. So I think Fremantle will win this one by maybe 6 goals. And the final fixture for the round is West Coast Gold Coast. And these two teams could be considered both bottom 4 sides by, you know, season's end. West Coast are absolutely depleted, which has allowed for them to pounce on the SSP rule system thing. They got Patrick Naish, former Richmond fringe player, Hugh Dixon, and Tom Joyce, who, mind you, did some very nice things on the weekend. Obviously, fringe players, you know, in the clubs, you know, they were previously at. So this is an opportunity for them to prove themselves. they're going to get an opportunity in the best 22 because I think West Coast have like 30 players that can actually play. Luke Shuey is pushing for round 1. Jack Darling has just become, eligible to start training with the team again, so it will take a bit of time for him to ramp up. As for the Suns, I mean, is there going to be a year where they perform? I've got no idea, but this is a good time to start things off on the right note. Took Miller leads from the front. I think that's just a great appointment as captain. It really just was an absolute no-brainer. I think David Swallow stepped down from the position. I'm not 100% sure on that. But look, Matt Rowell as well in his 3rd season, believe it or not, already. I mean, you'd think it's all going to come together for him and he could start the season very strongly. Return to that, first month of AFL footy that he played basically, which was the best month of his career. The Eagles, though, I actually back them to win this one. I mean, it's in front of a crowd at Optus. I think the crowd will be rocking. The Eagles, I mean, they've still got some talent in there. I think Andrew Gaff, obviously, still in there. Tim Kelly played a pretty good preseason match against Freo, so I think he can, back it up in this encounter. I mean, Gold Coast probably look better on paper in terms of midfield talent, but I think the experience of the Eagles could be just enough. I'm not 100% sure. This is pretty much a 50-50 toss of the coin type stuff. But I'm actually going to back the Eagles to win this one in what's going to be a very close game. I think it goes without saying that Gold Coast, I just mildly expect them to, stuff things up as per usual. Anyway, that is the whole video for the AFL season predictions or round 1 predictions. Hope you did enjoy. It was a bit of a colossal video, but make sure to drop a like and subscribe. As I said, start a discussion in the comments as to what your thoughts are on week 1 of the AFL season. But that'll be it for me. So thank you for watching once again, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.